Hey Austin, this is Keaton Everett with ABC, going over your pitching video from camp. We're going to go through and talk about your motion and mechanics and kind of break it down frame by frame and look at a couple key spots throughout your delivery that are sort of key to making sure that we're utilizing our lower half, we're maximizing velocity, we're just using our body to its fullest, we're getting consistent, and most importantly, we're getting ourselves in a healthy position. So, initially off the bat for you, we got to start getting that lower half involved. We got to start using that body a little bit more, and I'll go through and talk a little bit about that. All right, so let's stop. Okay, so we'll go right here. All right. What I like to look at here is we look at posture and balance through the start of the motion especially. All right, once you get started, we want to stay balanced, nice and long. All right, so what you see here is you see a lot of movement up with your hand, and see how you leave that circle. All right, so you're initially starting out with your weight on your front foot, then you're moving it to your back foot, you're going back, you're moving your hands up really far. Any movement with these hands, all right, it can be done, but it makes it a whole lot harder to time and get consistent. All right, and so you can see here you get going there, all right, and then you are almost completely out of that box. All right, so just make sure that you're staying up in that, a little bit of movement's fine, but you can see how you initially start out really tall. So try to get to that point where you want to start from. If you want to start from a little bit more crouched, start there first, but we just don't want any movement back. All right, so something that will help too with that is just moving your feet a little bit closer. All right, when your weight's down over that front foot, you kind of have to go back. If you think about sprinters, their first movement isn't back, their first movement's forward. Same thing with pitching. We want to be nice and efficient to get going. All right, another thing too, I want you to go through and watch where your ball comes out of your hand. So you can see this path here, that ball's back down here. All right, and so when you come set, see where it is when you come set? So why not just keep your hands there? All right, coming up and coming down doesn't make any difference in velocity. It doesn't create momentum. All it does just causes inconsistency with timing. We want to time that arm path the exact same time, so the more movement we have, the harder it is to time that. So just come set and just hold them right there throughout your entire motion. That your glove's just chilling right there. Boom, then those hands break, and now you're getting going. All right, easy fix. Something will help you out a lot. All right, so now here's where the issue comes in with your lower half that I was talking about. All right, so everything's kind of looking good. It's in a good position here. I mean, obviously we want the hands down, but what you're seeing is you're letting this foot kind of stay out in front of your body. All right, so what we want to look at is sort of what your hips are doing in relation to everything else. And so what I want you to kind of look at here is you can see how this foot kind of stays outside your hip. All right, so you can see how I'm going to draw a box too around your midline. So you can see how this foot, I know there's a lot of lines on the screen, but this foot's just kind of kicking out and your body's really not going anywhere. All right, you can still see your head's now over that front line. So you've picked up, it's kind of hard to see off the video, maybe a foot of movement in your upper half. Your lower half's already kind of doing a lot. All right, so what we want to try to get to is let this back foot get back over this back foot here. All right, so let that front foot get over that back foot. What that does is that causes sort of a delay in your hips. It enables you to stay closed, and so your back foot's here. Now that kind of gives room, that gives timing for your hips to get going first. Okay, so as you tick forward, now what this leg's doing back here is instead of kicking out this way, all right, it's kind of following that dirt, kind of coming out down this way to kind of give yourself a little bit more time to keep those hips close. So now, at this point, our foot still shouldn't be outside our hip. So now, in relation to what your upper body's doing, that foot still shouldn't be outside that hip, and it really shouldn't be outside that hip. So maybe right here down that mound. All right, so you can see your foot strike, your front foot is hitting the ground right here. All right, looks like it's about right here. All right, I want you to try to get to a point where you stride out 5 or 6 feet lengths, one over the other, and I want you to try to get out that far. Alright? You probably got at least another foot to almost 2 feet in stride length. We want to use that. It looks like you're a tall kid. We want to use that length. We want to use that stride to get going. Alright? So I want to see you ideally at foot strike. You can see how your back foot's kind of turned right here. At foot strike, you know, this is probably one of the most important parts of your mechanics, is your back foot's going to be, your back heel is kind of going to be turned a little bit, all right, because your hips are getting synced up. So your back knee's kind of turning down. You know, I bet you probably be somewhere around here. But the biggest thing is that front foot is we want to try to get to a point where, you know, we're more out here, all right, so that knees out behind that heel. All right, so you know you got a lot of room to work with. You know, it's going to look something like, you know, right here, something like that. All right, instead of that straight motion. All right, upper body wise, you're doing fine. You know, nothing is looking too bad. No injury red flags. But what you can see is this glove starting to turn out a little bit, which is going to cause this front side to pop open early, and that's just an entire function of stride length. Because you're not striding out long enough, that front side's going to have to turn, and so you know, through this motion, you know, there's just not a whole lot of body getting used. It's just all arm. All right. So then through your release point, you can see back foot's up off the ground, and you're basically throwing straight up. You're not using the mound. You're not using that body. You know, like I said, all the function of stride length. When you get going, when you get that stride length out, this is all going to fix itself. All right. So now, ideally, what it looked like is, instead of going from here, you know, that back foot's still going to be on the ground. You're going to be creating, you know, almost like a triangle. That head's going to be out over that front foot. You know, hopefully your front foot's going to be out here a little bit more. And you know, now it's something crazy. You know, now you're going to be picking up almost another foot of release point. You're going to be getting more angle. It's going to be jumping on hitters, and it's just going to create more power. It's going to be more consistent, especially in the long run. So you can see through this release point how your body just kind of stays in one place. So your upper body is just kind of staying in one place, which puts all the strain on this back shoulder. All right. So the more we can kind of get out over that front foot, then that divvies out that deceleration of your arm throughout your whole body instead of just on that arm. So when you get older, get a little bit stronger. It'll be a little bit easier on your arm. So anyways, you know, like I said, just clean up sort of some of those initial, the initial start to your mechanics. Come set, keep those hands down, try to get those hips going, close longer down the mound, but just stride out down that mound. Try to mark off, like I said, 5 or 6 paces, and try to hit that every time, because you got a lot more in there. You know, you're just not using those legs. So just make sure that, and it starts from the very beginning, and just make sure you're using those legs, getting down over that front foot. So thanks for making it out into camp. Hopefully you had a great time, and we'll see you again with ABC.